Welcome back. You're still watching Citizen Extra, special coverage of the political happenings across the country with the NASA big announcement yesterday, as well as results coming in from the political party primaries. Of course, in as far as the results are concerned, the biggest news this morning is that Lee Kinyanjui has clinched the Jubilee Party ticket to vie for governor for Nakuru with 215,385 votes against incumbent Kenneth Mbugua, who garnered 150,137. We got an indication that Kenneth Mbugua was to convene a press briefing this morning to challenge that result. We are still waiting for that to happen. In studio, we continue discussing the big announcement by NASA yesterday, and in studio we do have Otiende Amolo, former chair of the Commission on Administration of Justice, also known as Office of the Ombudsman, as well as the ODM nominee for the Rarieda parliamentary seat. Cynthia Mutere, chair of the Women's League in Fort Kenya, is also in studio. And now we're joined by Vincent Kimosop, policy analyst, to bring some level of objectivity to this debate. You do understand we had a member from Fort Kenya and another one from ODM who are both in the NASA coalition. Karibu sana Bwana Vincent.
Appreciate it.
Now, your quick thoughts on the ticket yesterday. Of course, the general feeling is that we've been here before. Don't you feel that, Vincent, Raila Kalonzo ticket, we've seen that before?
I think, first of all, again, thanks for having me, and congratulations, Otiende Amolo, for the win. There are three things. My first initial reaction to the ticket that came out yesterday. First is that I had spoken out in this program that the ticket was going to be Raila Kalonzo, based on the evidence and the performance in the past. So yesterday's announcement for me was not a surprise. I had given a 9 out of 10 in my previous estimation. And I will say the following, therefore. One, congratulations to the opposition. They have been able to address one thing that has been a challenge in the past, and that is their ability to coalesce under a single presidential candidate. That's an achievement. It's good for democracy. It's very clear to understand what are the issues of engagement. Now, the other thing is that this, therefore, clearly defines the battle lines. Yesterday, we were actually put into one final and last contest of the, I can say, the Kenyatta and the Odinga dynasties. This is the last bullet, because you hear Uhuru is on the second term, and Raila has been touted to be, this is his last resources. So expect a strong camp. Everybody is going to do everything between the two. Now, the opposition has an opportunity to also present its agenda very clearly, and if they actually do a good campaign, they stand a chance. Currently, the momentum, for example, is in favor of the president. One, he's an incumbent. Number two, they have conducted a more, let's say, a more organized Jubilee nominations. Now, I remember in our previous engagement, Fred, I pointed out that in 2013, one of the things that weighed down the candidature of Raila Odinga was when the ODM nominations were actually not well carried out. Now, the same thing is happening today. If you look at the strongholds of Uhuru and the strongholds of Raila, as far as even the gubernatorial positions are concerned, you see a faster coalescing and a faster consolidation, unlike what is happening in ODM. And I'm saying ODM because since it's not a new ticket, the person who will bear the highest level of responsibility in delivering the ticket is actually on the shoulders of Raila. So my expectation, for example, is that ODM should have done a more credible, efficient nominations as a government in waiting. You have seen what is in Busia, in Migori, in Kisumu. That still weighs down the party in preparing for a bigger agenda. So I think, in my view, is that it was good for the opposition to unite. They actually helped to shape the battle very clearly, but they have a higher journey to cover, unlike, for example, the incumbents. Now, let's even look at it closer. There is an announcement that was made yesterday, and then there were also other announcements that actually dented the glory of what should have been. If you remember, the chairman of Wiper resigned on the same day when this announcement was being made. Now that tells you very clearly that within Wiper, one thing that Raila has to do is to go an extra mile to actually ensure that the Wiper base still actually delivers as they did in 2013. There is also the other issue about the new positions that have been created. I actually don't think their positions have been created because constitutionally the cabinet secretaries are appointees of the president. So what happens, for example, if we are selling a narrative of you are a principal in the government, but you're going to be an appointee of the other person. If, for example, there is a division, you saw what happened within Kibaki and Raila in 2002 when they did not agree. If, for example, the Raila and Musalia does not agree, it means it's possible for them to do what? For somebody else to replace him. Then finally, is the wrong signal that has been sent by the governor of Bomet. He is a principal in NASA. But he has said clearly that his first responsibility is to clinch the governor of Bomet. In my view, everybody, the focus should be to get Raila to become president. Other interests should be secondary. But if you're saying you're a first principal and you're announcing on day one that your first focus is to clinch Bomet gubernatorial seat, that sends mixed signals. So yes, that's my
and probably I should ask Cynthia as well. Is your party leader seeking to defend his senatorial seat for Bungoma as well, or does he now leave that and focus on being a principal for NASA?
According to the party list that was submitted to IBC, his name was submitted as the presidential candidate for Ford Kenya. So as far as I know, he is the presidential candidate. If then he's going to, after this arrangement, then continue to now seek his senatorial seat, is something that we're yet to hear even as a party, but I know from the party list he was the presidential candidate and he did not submit his name as the senator. But maybe from this arrangement he could probably consider defending his seat once again as they even continue to consolidate Western Kenya and now campaign for the presidential candidate for NASA.
Bwana Otiende Amollo, of course, Bwana Kimoso raises some very fundamental issues, given how ODM has run its party primaries. Even Wiper, in some cases, we've seen the kind of fallout coming from Kitui. The chairman of the party actually calling it a day and saying, I've left Wiper party. Now this kind of internal wrangling within the parties that form the larger NASA, in comparison to Jubilee, very quick concessions. We are seeing a case like in Kiambu, when William Kabogo saw that the contest was not going his way, he quickly considered. But the wrangling and the disputes and all this fighting within these parties that form NASA, do you think that is conducive to actually run a proper presidential campaign?
Fred, let me respond to that and respond to two other things Vincent said. First of all, on that score, I think it is unfair to say that the NASA the ODM nominations were violent and any more violent than the Jubilee nominations. I think that it is clear and it is true that they were violent. There were pockets of violence both in ODM and NASA, but in ODM much less than they were last time in 2013. What there is are contestations, not violent contestations, but contestations in terms of the way the nominations are conducted, which is completely democratic. As long as they are contestations but they are not violent, there's nothing wrong with that. Secondly, about the arrangement and about Senator Wetangula, about Isaac Ruto, there is nothing wrong with any of the five principals running for any position for now. Wetangula can run for senator, Isaac Ruto can run for governor, anybody can run for any position. But once the elections are settled, once the presidential flag bearer has been sworn in as the president, then the arrangement will come in, and anybody, just as it happened with the minister in Kaiseri and the others, anybody who then was elected to any position would come in, and once they have adopted the new office, once they come into the new office, then they resign the previous office, whether it is senator, whether it is governor, or whatever position it is. So for now, nothing stops anybody from running for any position, because the prescribed positions which have to be on the ballot is the one for president and the deputy. The other three positions are positions that are being created in this arrangement, which, as you correctly say, in this context, will be presidential appointees. Thirdly, and I made this point before, Vincent, before you came, there is no fundamental difference between what NASA is doing now and what Jubilee has done before. And let me explain why. Even in 2013, President Kenyatta ran with William Ruto as his deputy, but not just as president and deputy. They ran on a power-sharing philosophy that we'll support you as president and you will be the deputy, but in terms of sharing government position, we'll share. And as far as I understand, they have done that. There's no such thing in the Constitution. So there's no big deal in terms of agreeing in principle how the president will execute his executive authority. That is what Jubilee has done in terms of 2. That is what NASA is doing in terms of 5. There's nothing unconstitutional about that, and I explained that. The point, though, is that insofar as that goes, it rests at the feet of the president, and that is true. But I explained earlier that to that extent, the relevant question would then be, to what extent can we trust the presidential nominee to live by those words? And my answer to that was that the only way you can answer that question is by looking at history. Looking at the history of Raila, he has consistently been a man of principle. And that must lead one to conclude that he will live by those principles, that he will do what he has said.
Bwana Kimosop, you don't seem to believe in...
Since I'm here, Fred,
yes.
Allow me to... You know, my friend Otieno Amolo here, is it Amolo, remember when you were in the opposition, we are looking at battle formation, and we are asking ourselves, how do we ensure, for example, you secure a NASA presidency? Now, the first thing that you have is that you are outside government. Remember in 2013, the Prime Minister was a principal, more or less you could say an incumbent. You also had a Vice President who was part of the executive. In this situation, William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta were outside, more say because of the ICC cases. Of course, he was still Deputy Prime Minister and a Member of Parliament. So what I'm pointing out is looking at the scenarios for ensuring a victory. I think it is the burden of proof, I think, since you're an advocate, of ensuring that what ensures victory resides more on the opposition, NASA in this situation, more than the incumbency. The reason why Jubilee, for example, I believe the elections look to be more organized is because they are in power. Their ability, there are things that they access courtesy of that. Now, Fred, if you're running for a position of governor together for a senator, you are actually providing, what can I say, fodder for the opposition that already you are projecting, you are projecting
a lack of faith.
You don't have faith. You see, if truly, look, Raila is not running for any other seat, he's going for president. His deputy Kalonzo is going for deputy president. In my view, if I was advising them, is that if the focus is to deliver victory, everything should become secondary. So his energy will be divided into 2: getting the gubernatorial seat, getting the senatorial seat. So I am happy, for example, where Musalia Mudavadi is not going for any other seat. That, for me, is how the opposition will be easily, you are projecting that the greater good of Kenya is what we are going for.
Chinda Molo, can you react to that first?
Well, I think that's Vincent's view in terms of how it works in terms of getting votes and all. So that's not so much a technical legal question. I was responding to the legal question. And to legally, nothing prohibits any of the side from going, for any position. Now, if it's a political question, again, it depends on the viewpoint. One could say, for example, that in the case of Isaac Ruto, going for governor and being a NASA principal might actually help NASA get all the votes from Bomet, rather than if he did not go for governor. Now, that is quite possible.
That's political.
Yes, it's quite possible. So, but what's important is that whichever position one goes for, it is possible to go for it and go for the other. But Vincent, let me come back to a second matter you've repeated now twice. Who has an advantage between Jubilee and NASA in terms of selling votes? If you look at 2013, although you say that Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto were not in government, there's a sense in which they were. Because the president then, President Kibaki, was in support of the Jubilee team. Now, the Raila, who was then the prime minister, and who, as you know, also complained that although the agreement was to share power, it ended up not being power sharing. And therefore, if you were to say, it would probably have been like 2080. The biggest hurdle that the Jubilee administration must face now is that in 2013, they did not have a history. Uhuru had not been president, Ruto had not been deputy president. And nobody therefore would ask them, you promised to do this, how come you've not done them? This year, they would be held to account. They would be asked, you promised to do the following, and you can look at the Jubilee manifesto, and they will be asked, what have you done about it? And if you were to go down that road, you will find there are very, very many issues that they might not have concrete answers for, and that becomes a great disadvantage.
Let's bring Cynthia into this conversation, because also her party leader is one of those that could be running for different seats as well. Now, you still don't know, but if at all Moses Wetangula decided to go for senator, it's even been suggested that he could even decide to go for governor of Bungoma. I don't know how that went. But do you think that would help the NASA campaigns, that as Bwana Otinda Amollo put it, that probably if by Isaac Ruto going for the governorship of Bomet, it could politically suggest that yes, probably he could galvanize the votes from Bomet. Do you think the same would happen for Bungoma?
Yes, Bungoma would be delivered as whole, and then of course he would be traversing Trans Nzoia, Busia, Kakamega, Vihiga, which of course Musalia Mudavadi is working on. And so we would also be working in Nairobi, where there's substantial Western voters in Nairobi and other areas, just to make sure that the community is in NASA. I mean, this is local politics. It really makes it look very tribal, but this is the way Kenyan politics goes. What are you bringing to the table? Do your people buy into this? And you do find that if you look at the region, Jubilee has really sidelined the region for the past 5 years. They come in 3 months to the elections to launch roads, to launch all sorts of projects that in 3 months really would they have impact on the lives of the people? And the people are not going to be duped, as you have seen.
The assumption is that once this different campaign teams hit the campaign trail, that what we saw yesterday is what we're going to see. That 5 principals walking on stage together, dancing together, addressing the crowds. But now when you have 1 or 2 running different races, Isaac Ruto focusing his energies in Bomet, Moses Wetangula focusing his energies on Bungoma, do you think it will affect this visual aspect?
These are astute politicians who are able to handle national politics. Remember, Isaac Ruto is just not a first-timer. He's been an MP and has been in national politics, as well as my party leader, Senator Moses Wetangula. These are people who are able to do national campaigns as well as look at their backyards and make sure that it's secure. And that's the way everybody works. Really, even when you're coming into parliament here, you're doing national politics, but make sure you're not forgetting your mother constituency that actually brought you
3 months to the elections. Do you think these people have enough time to run 2 races at the same time?
They have been doing it. It's been campaign mode for the longest time since Jubilee started disappointing everybody. Everybody has been consolidating their people. The people have been disgruntled. They've been working on them, telling them, in the election, we will be coming on with NASA.
Bwana Otinda Amollo, do you think it's something that's doable to run 2 different races? Remember, the core principles in NASA, they should be running the national agenda together as a team.
I will be the first to admit that naturally it will bring some challenges, but they are not insurmountable challenges. Because ultimately the question will be this: whether Moses Wetangula decides to run for senator or not, it is that the people of Bungoma, the question will be, are they aligned to Jubilee or NASA? Now, if they are, then he would not need, for example, to spend much energy within the county. It will be enough that his name is in that ballot. The same issue will be with Isaac Ruto. And I think the issue would be, for the county of Bomet and perhaps the larger Kalenjin nation, the question will be, do we have a stake in NASA? Do we have a stake in Jubilee? and which stake do we go for?
Despite the kind of win that Joyce Laboso had in Bomet, remember she won that, she clinched the Jubilee ticket by over 200,000. So it means that Isaac Ruto, even in Bomet alone, faces quite some stiff challenge from the Jubilee candidate.
I think that's not a fair platform. If they had gone for nomination with Isaac Ruto and she won, then I think it would be a fair platform. But I think their contest with Isaac Ruto is yet to come. And so it can only be speculative how that will go. In that context, in fact, Isaac Ruto would have an advantage, because the people would say, Joyce Laboso wants to go for governor, but what else? Her stake is only
even if Ruto does not spend enough time campaigning.
And they will say, Isaac Ruto wants governor, but he's also a co-principal. So between the two, where would we have a greater stake? So in that sense, in fact, I think Ruto might have an edge.
Okay.
I tend to agree with Otieno. It's here because remember that for me, Isaac Ruto is actually one of the biggest beneficiaries of the NASA formation. It's Isaac Ruto followed by Musalia Mudavadi in that order. And this is how I see this. He has come in, he's running as a leader of a party, and also he's running for his own, for governor in Bomet, and he's also has the opportunity to introduce himself to national politics come 2022. Remember, the constitution gives governors a 2-term limit. So he's actually investing not only in 2017 to secure his governor seat, but also to introduce himself, because in come 2022 he can easily go to the basis of the other 4 principles and say, I stood with you. So I think for me that is the politics of Isaac Ruto. And then number 2 is that there is also the community dimension, and since I happen to come from that area, let me give a dimension. The politics on the ground will be that this is one of our best funds that we have invested in. So it's very hard for the people in Bomet to actually throw away Isaac Ruto because of investing in the future. So that is the ticket. That for me is how Isaac Ruto is likely to sell his ticket. Now Jubilee, in my view, has to run a very good campaign for Laboso in Bomet, and not an antagonistic one. It has to be an issue-driven one, because if they go antagonistic, he has been in the game. But again, I will point out, and I'm just raising the issue with Otieno, that what I'm still concerned about the NASA ticket is the signal that it is sending. I think I have no problem with the lineup and the formation, but I can tell you, if you remember those days of tuning in an FM frequency, when you're switching from an AM to an FM, or short, there is a hissing sound on the ground, and if they don't take care of that, that actually could be the Achilles heels for the NASA ticket.
And Bwana Kimosop will come back for you to explain exactly what you mean by that hissing sound within the NASA formation, because I could see some worry on the face of Cynthia Mutere. But
I can say it's the voter fatigue that just needs to be whipped out.
Okay, we'll come back and discuss that. Let's now head out to, Jubilee Party headquarters in Pangani, where we do understand that supporters of Charles Njagua, also known as Jaguar, one of the aspirants for the Starehe parliamentary seat ticket, are there. Remember, there was a dispute with that particular contest yesterday. The returning officer for Starehe awarded the Jubilee ticket to Maina Kamanda, who was rivaled by Charles Njagua, that artist known as Jaguar, who has raised that dispute to the party headquarters. We need to know, let's link up with a reporter there, Patrick Igunza. Patrick, how far has this dispute gone in terms of resolution by the party's headquarters?
Thank you very much indeed, Freddie. You've indicated it rightly. We are coming to you live from the Jubilee Party headquarters, and the resolutions to these disputes are yet to be made known. What's happening right now is that we just have the supporters of Charles Njagua, the one who was aspiring to become the Member of Parliament for Starehe constituency, actually camping outside this particular headquarters. They are protesting the defeat for Jaguar, that where the current member of parliament actually was announced the winner, and they are saying that they believe Jaguar is the one who was victorious, and they've come here demanding that actually that particular primary be repeated, and that is what we are waiting to hear right now. Sorry, it's a little bit noisy outside here, but we haven't had any formal communication from the party officials as yet. And we also do have the Millicent Omanga, who was also aspiring to be the Nairobi women representative. Actually, we're being told that she is on her way, coming here equally to file a petition. She believes that she was defeated unfairly. We've tried to speak to those that are in charge, but they have said that in not so long a time they will be issuing a press statement. Perhaps it's then that they will indicate the steps that will be taken. Previously we had party officials indicating that there could be these primaries that could be repeated, but then again we also were told that as long as the right procedure is taken, that's when the primaries will be repeated. So it's a little bit unclear whether the primaries, as far as the Starehe constituency goes, will be repeated. That is what we are waiting to hear from these particular party officials. And we also are given to understand that after the conclusion of the primaries for Jubilee parties, those that emerged victorious, especially those that actually vied unopposed, will be receiving their certificates today, as well as those that actually did win and no dispute has risen in those areas that they were vying. Freddie.
Yeah, Patrick, if you can hear me, we saw yesterday Jaguar, the artist, the aspirant rather, whose supporters are there. We saw him get into the party headquarters when the president was there. They even had a tete-a-tete briefly. And the indication immediately after that was that the party primaries for Starehe could be repeated. That was changed later. Are you saying that it's still in limbo, that no one knows what will happen in as far as the Starehe contest is concerned, that probably a repeat is still possible?
Sorry, Freddie, it's a little bit noisy. I don't seem to get what you're asking. But what I would like to say is that we are waiting for official communication from the party officials as far as those disputed primaries go, whether there will be a repeat exercise or whether those that actually were announced winners will go ahead and receive their certificates. That is something that we cannot be certain right now, and we are waiting for a press conference that is set to be held in not so long a time from now, and that's when we will be actually told what the situation is and what the future looks like, especially for those that do believe they were trounced unfairly. Freddie.
Thank you, Patrick. Patrick Egunza there, live from the Jubilee Party headquarters in Pangani here in Nairobi. Of course, supporters of one of the aspirants for the Starehe parliamentary seat on a Jubilee ticket, Charles Njagua, that's the artist known as Jaguar, are still there disputing the award of that particular ticket to Minor Commander. Now back to my analysts, and probably we could comment on what is happening at Jubilee Party headquarters. Of course, contests in Nairobi are some of the most hotly contested. You know, ODM is yet to carry out its party primaries for Nairobi. That will happen on Sunday, which is the very last day allowed for these party primaries. What is happening here? Do we expect a replica of the same, given the history that we've seen with ODM party primaries elsewhere, that Nairobi will just present similar issues as well? Cynthia?
I believe that from experience from the other counties, they should handle Nairobi with a little bit more decorum. We don't expect to see duplicate tallying centers with someone introducing a new returning officer announcing winners. Not untidy business for Nairobi. So we pray that our sister party ODM will really get Nairobi together. But what's happening at the Jubilee Party when the news reporter says that we saw Jaguar speaking with His Excellency the President? I mean, everybody would want to read into it that he's giving a nod to this particular candidate and saying probably there's going to be a repeat election. But then what a party leader really needs to do is to really speak to everybody and just assure everybody that there's going to be fairness. And of course we are hearing that the National Election Board is probably going to speak to that question and have the dispute resolution resolve that.
Yes.
So we don't know if they're going to have repeat election or if Commander will remain the candidate.
And we'll await that announcement or that declaration by the Jubilee Party's National Elections Board. I'm sure they must be deliberating on that. And to be fair to the president, we're not saying that he assured that aspirant of anything, probably reassured him that the National Elections Board of that party will be looking into that matter. But just looking forward to the ODM party primaries for Nairobi, Bwana Otiende Amolo, the party has decided to leave it to the very last day. Given the kind of disputes that are arising in as far as the contest within Jubilee, the issues that we've seen in ODM strongholds in Nyanza, do you think that was right for the party to leave it to the very last day, that there's no possibility of a repeat?
Well, first, let's start by saying, let me comment on what we just saw. I think as I was telling Vincent earlier, I think the pictures we've seen demonstrate that there are contestations in the primaries, both in Jubilee and in ODM. But I think what is important is that the contestations must not result in violence. But as long as they're peaceful, their demonstrations, their pleas, their appeals, all that is quite democratic. And I believe that the Jubilee Party, just like the ODM Party, has a system of resolving those disputes. The second point is about the ODM nominations on Sunday. I think we should also remember that we've got there not because ODM said so, but because the High Court in Malindi extended that time. I think if the position of the IEBC had been maintained, the last day of all this would long have passed, so would have gone beyond this. But I agree that there are always challenges on putting nomination on the very last possible day. And what it means is this, that the nominations must be done so professionally, so efficiently, so transparently that nobody can legitimately complain.
Given what you've seen in ODM in Nyanza and what you're seeing in Jubilee here in Nairobi, do you think there's a possibility that it can be that finely cut out? What it means, and this is why I think the ODM nominations were not done once. They were done by installments. That the lessons you learn in Siaya, in Kisumu, in Homa Bay and Migori are lessons that then now help you in the other counties that are remaining. And therefore probably that means that in Nairobi, the mistake that may have been made here and there will inform the party on how not to do that. Lastly on that though, it also means that whoever is declared to have won will actually be that person to bear the certificate. And it means that any appeal or any tribunal that looks into the matter must be so efficient and effective that on the same day, once issues arise, even before the end of the counting, those who are contesting must bring those issues as they arise, so that cumulatively one can keep seeing, and if they can be dealt with, then they are dealt with. There are challenges, but I believe that with the lessons learned elsewhere, hopefully it should be much better. Kimosop, your thoughts on that?
I'm really impressed that today I have engaged Otiende Amolo on other professional engagements, and I'm really happy today to see the politician in my brother. And I think nothing wrong, just the different levels of engagement. I think we have to approach it this way, my brother. If you look at the interest that the city attracts, you can even see Jubilee has announced right from the presidency that one of the seats we are interested in is to get the seats of the governor of Nairobi. So far, in Mombasa, Kisumu and Nairobi are in the hands of ODM, telling you very much clearly that everybody wants to have a control over the seats of power. Now, if therefore you push with that kind of interest and you push all that to the last day, the message you're sending is that whatever outcome, the processes that for dispute resolutions are the only alternatives. There is no option of going back. If you remember, I think Pareno, right, the chair of the ODM election board, they actually gave the opportunity in Busia to do what? To carry out a repeat nomination in Teso, in the two Teso constituencies, meaning that one of the other options was, in the event there are disputes, there is the possibility of going back. So this one you've put in on the last day, the message you're sending very clearly is that the only options of resolving disputes will be not a repeat election, because it's the last day of the nomination process. Yes. The other message that also comes out, Fred, is that the interests that you have in the city, they have not been able to resolve, for example, consensus approach. There are areas you've seen ODM give out nominations to candidates who did not have anyone challenging them. Meaning that they used all the options, stagger them. So these ones of Nairobi, where the interest will be high, you also are seeing that they are giving room to any opportunity to areas that they can resolve or address the nominations without going to the ballot. It is expensive, Fred, for political parties to conduct nominations, and any opportunity to address the issues. Even so, Jubilee for Nairobi, they were looking to a possibility of Sonko and Peter Kenneth possibly agreeing. I know this was not written anywhere, but since we are doing political analysis, we can say it as it is. But that did not happen, and they had to go to the ballot.
Now that you brought in the issue of Mike Sonko, who's also one of those who clinched the Jubilee Party ticket for that particular contest in Nairobi, and what happened to Peter Kenneth when he decided that that exercise was a sham and disassociated himself from it and wrote to the party headquarters? How was it a total giveaway? Do you think that Peter Kenneth should have continued at least fought on a bit in that particular race, Kimuso?
Let's say that we have a constitution that has given everybody, Article 38, the right to exercise their political right. So I think it is the right of Peter Kenneth to run for in a political party. It is his right to actually also explore all dispute resolution, and he has the right to freedom of expression and freedom of thought. Now, the challenge I see with the Peter Kenneth candidature is the timing. Remember, he got into this late. And then number two is also how he carried out his campaign. And then finally is that he was seen to be a project of a bigger interest, particularly the Uhuru succession politics. And that made people to feel that this is somebody whom we are being brought to lead us, not because of our interest, but because of other plans that some people have. So that worked to his disadvantage. Now, the challenge therefore is, if Jubilee does not resolve the issue very well, remember the interests that were behind Peter Kenneth. Remember also that he has a constituency. You cannot run away. This is somebody who has run for president. So this will really put into test how the dispute resolution mechanism, the post-nomination dispute resolution mechanism. Remember, the president said himself that he was even ready to mediate. That did not work. So if the before nomination dispute resolution mechanism did not help them reach an agreement, what about the post-nomination? So that will be put to test, and I think it is a ticket to watch. And I can say if they don't manage very well, they could also give further to the opposition, yes, considering the interest that they have in the city.
And Bwana Otiende Amolo, the politician now, how does that that particular contest for the governor's ticket for Jubilee, the outcome that you're seeing right now, how does it play into the hands of the opposition?
First of all, I want to assure my friend Vincent that I am a politician because I'm the nominee for Ariada, but I always remain a lawyer. And for me, I will always speak objectively, irrespective of the position. And let me agree with him in terms of the Nairobi primaries. There can be no possibility of a rerun. That is completely true. But I do not think there's any big deal about that, because you must remember, even in Nairobi, there are places where the ODM party decided to give direct tickets to persons, even though there were other contestants. My own sister was a victim, Elizabeth Ongoro. She was aged out of the party and given to my other friend, TJ Kajwang, and she's had to go to ANC. So even if it came to that there was no rerun, there's no big deal, because the party can always still determine who to give it to. And in a sense, and that brings me to the second question, commenting from an outside perspective in terms of the Nairobi governor's race, I think it was a strategic mistake by Jubilee to allow primaries in respect of the governor's race. I think that if that mediated effort had succeeded, it would have worked better for the party. Because the way I see things, as long as you are going for those party primaries, and for so many of the reasons that you said, Sonko was always going to have an edge over Peter Kenneth. But I think anybody will agree that Peter Kenneth would be a better candidate for governor, even for Jubilee, than Mike Sonko. And I think that to that
when you say a better candidate, is it in terms of marshalling voters to vote, or would make up
by saying I'm giving the outside perspective?
Yes.
I am not in Jubilee,
it's okay.
and so I'm giving gratuitous advice that if you put Mike Sonko on one hand and you put Evans Kedero on the other, and you are not a diehard of either Jubilee or ODM, you are more likely to go with Evans Kidero than Mike Sonko for so many reasons.
Let me ask,
and that is why I say that if you had put Peter Kenneth on one side and you put Evans Kidero on the other, and you're not a diehard of either, the decision would be much more difficult. That's the way I see it.
Allow me to ask this question, Fred. You know that one of the challenges we have with the Constitution, it says that power is rested and vested with the people. So how do we say, for example, and that's one of the things I've had to resolve. You have, in terms of qualities, technical ability, management, all that, yes, you can say that Peter Kenneth has a longer and a more attractive CV, unlike Mike Sonko. But we have a situation whereby Mike Sonko, for example, has been able to project and run a campaign that resonates more with the people, and the majority of Nairobi seem to identify with Sonko. So how do we balance that? You must remember, and you said it, and I agree with you, that part of the reasons people may have voted Mike Sonko as opposed to Peter Kenneth is not just that question of popularity. There are other issues, the succession politics and all that and all that. Now, if you know that, then you cannot at the same time say that he was voted merely because he's popular. But the second point to note, sometimes democracy can be overrated on certain levels. I get you. The Jubilee administration has settled on President Uhuru as the flag bearer and William Ruto as the deputy. There were no primaries for that purpose. Why? Because there are certain matters that from a strategic perspective you don't want to put to primaries. I get you. Just the way the NASA Brigade has agreed on Raila Kalonzo, there were no primaries for that. If Nairobi is very strategic, you might choose not to have primaries and focus on who would deliver the vote for us. And that's the perspective I was talking about. Okay.
Let's now take another break. When we return, we'll be looking at the results of the party primaries. Remember, we still continue to receive results from different areas that carried out the primaries the day before yesterday. Quite some interesting results. We are seeing quite a number of big losers, big winners, as well as major comebacks. Who are these, and what does it mean for Kenya's politics? That when Citizen Extra returns.